Man's Search for Meaning, page 60. I waited. Minutes passed. I became more and more impatient as he did not return. After 3 years of imprisonment, I was picturing freedom joyously, imagining how wonderful it would be to run toward the battlefront. But we did not get that far. The very moment when my friend came back, the camp gate was thrown open. A splendid aluminium-colored car on which were painted large red crosses slowly rolled on to the parade ground. A delegate from the International Red Cross in Geneva arrived, and the camp and its inmates were under his protection. The delegate belittled himself in a farmhouse in the vicinity in order to be near the camp and at all times in case of emergency. Who worried about escape now? Boxes with medicines were unloaded from the car. Cigarettes were distributed. We were photographed and joy reigned supreme. Now there was no need for us to risk running toward the fighting line. In our excitement, we had forgotten the third body. So we carried it outside and dropped it into the narrow grave we had dug for the 3 corpses. The guard who accompanied us, relatively inoffensive man, suddenly became quite gentle. He saw that the tables might be turned and tried to win our goodwill. He joined in the short prayers that we offered for the dead men before throwing soil over them. After the tension and excitement of the past days and hours, those last days in our race with death, the words of our prayer asking for peace were as fervent as any ever uttered by the human voice. And so the last day in camp passed in anticipation of freedom. But we have rejoiced too early. The Red Cross delegate had assured us that an agreement had been signed and that the camp must not be evacuated. But that night the SS arrived with trucks and brought an order to clear the camp. The last remaining prisoners were to be taken to a central camp, from which they would be sent to Switzerland within 48 hours, to be exchanged for some prisoners of war. We scarcely recognized the SS. They were so friendly, trying to persuade us to get in the trucks without fear, telling us that we should be grateful for our good luck. Those who were strong enough crowded into the trucks, and the seriously ill and feeble were lifted up with difficulty. My friend and I, we did not hide our rucksacks now, stood in the last group, from which 13 would be chosen for the next to last truck. The chief doctor counted out the requisite number, but he omitted the 2 of us. The 13 were loaded into the truck, and we had to stay behind. Surprised, very annoyed and disappointed, we blamed the chief doctor, who excused himself by saying that he had been tired and distracted. He said that he had thought we still intended to escape. Impatiently, we sat down, keeping our rucksacks on our backs, and waited with a few remaining prisoners for a last truck. We had to wait a long time. Finally, we lay down on the mattresses of the deserted guard room, exhausted by the excitement of the last few hours and days, during which we had fluctuated continually between hope and despair. We slept in our clothes and shoes, ready for the journey. The noise of rifles and cannons woke us, The flashes of tracer bullets and gunshots entered the hut. The chief doctor dashed in and ordered us to take cover on the door. One prisoner jumped to my stomach from the bed above me and with his shoes on. That awakened me, all right. Then we grasped what was happening. The battlefront had reached us. The shooting decreased and morning dawned.